Hey, what's going on? Hope you're doing great today because we've got a fresh new update to talk about for Mafia The Old Country. And honestly, this one's pretty interesting. Version 1.005 just dropped. And while at first glance it might look like one of those smaller patches, there's actually quite a bit packed into it once you really go through everything. And the more I looked into it, the more I realized this isn't just some quick bug fix pass. It's the kind of update that quietly improves your entire experience, whether you're still in the middle of your first playthrough or you're one of those people going for 100% completion, all achievements, all collectibles, the whole deal. So let's walk through what exactly has changed, what's been fixed, and why these things matter more than they might look on paper. Because I think if you've spent any time with Mafia the Old Country, you'll know how much little bugs or annoyances can affect the flow of this game. One of the first fixes that really stood out to me is related to the Trinacria collectible. If you've been hunting these down, you probably already know how frustrating it is when something you need for completion slips through the cracks. Before this patch, there was a problem where one of the Trinacria items could literally fall through the map. Imagine you've been combing through an area, you finally get to the spot, you pick it up, and then it just clips through the ground and it's gone. No way to get it back, no way to reload the map and fix it, and that basically meant your collectible run was ruined unless you started fresh or hoped for a future patch. Well, 1.005 addresses exactly that. Now, you don't have to worry about losing a Trinacria to the void. It's a simple fix, but it completely changes how reliable and satisfying collectible hunting feels. And for achievement hunters or completionists, that's a big relief. Another issue that's been handled is with the fox statue in Pasquale's shop. If you tried to buy it without enough denarii, the game would still let you go through with it, which sounds weird already. But the real kicker was that it could break your progress toward the collector achievement or trophy. That's the one tied to getting all of the collectible items. So people were essentially locking themselves out of an achievement because of a shop bug. Now, after this patch, that's sorted out. You can't trick the system anymore, and you won't find yourself permanently stuck just because of a weird shop interaction. I think this is one of those fixes where, unless it happened to you, you might not realize how game-breaking it actually was. But for the people who hit that wall, it was incredibly frustrating. So this is one of the most important fixes in the patch from a long-term playability perspective. Speaking of achievements, there was also a problem with the True Soldado trophy, or achievement. That one requires you to finish the campaign on hard difficulty, but the game had a little loophole in its logic. If you ever went into the pause menu, dropped the difficulty to medium, and then immediately bumped it back up to hard, it could trick the system into thinking you hadn't done the full run properly. So even if you did the entire campaign on hard, if you just experimented for a second or maybe even changed it by accident, you were out of luck when it came time for the achievement. This patch fixes that. Now it tracks properly and you'll get credit as long as you really do play through on hard. It's the kind of thing that feels small, but means a lot to players who take difficulty runs seriously. Because nothing feels worse than putting in all that effort and then the game decides you don't deserve the recognition for it. On the visual side, 1.005 addresses something a little more subtle, but definitely noticeable if you care about graphics. In Chapter 9, inside the factory, shadows were appearing pixelated in certain places. It didn't break the game, but it looked rough compared to the otherwise polished environments. It's one of those things where once you notice it, you can't stop seeing it. The patch cleans that up, so shadows now look smoother and more natural. That might sound cosmetic, but Mafia is a game that leans heavily on atmosphere. The lighting, the shadow work, the smoke and fog, these are what make the environments feel alive and gritty. So a fix to shadows in a major story chapter really helps preserve immersion. The developers also mention UI improvements. Now, they don't go into deep detail in the notes, but we can assume this means cleaning up inconsistencies, maybe fixing some misaligned menus, improving readability, making navigation smoother. For a game that has a lot of collectibles, upgrades, and little systems, UI polish can make a big difference. If you've ever had the game hiccup while showing you a prompt or noticed a weird overlapping text, those kinds of annoyances should feel less common after this patch. Alongside that, they've also done some audio fixes. Audio is tricky to pin down without examples, but given how important voice acting and environmental sound is in Mafia, anything that improves clarity or eliminates glitches is going to make the game world feel more grounded. Stability is another area that's been worked on, and honestly, this is something you can never have too much of. Version 1.05 brings stability and performance improvements across the board. That means fewer crashes, fewer stutters, smoother frame pacing, and overall more reliable gameplay. If you're on console, you'll especially appreciate this, but even PC players can feel the difference. Speaking of platform-specific changes, PS5 players are getting extra stability improvements. It sounds like the devs were aware of some unique issues on PlayStation hardware and have now tuned things to run more consistently. For PC players, the patch brings a couple of really nice quality of life updates. One is a fix for the sprint control mapping. Before, if you tried to remap sprint when it was set to hold, the game wouldn't let you do it. That's the kind of input bug that can drive you crazy if you have a particular control scheme you prefer. Now that's fixed, so you can customize sprint however you want. The second PC tweak is actually pretty big for anyone who loves to tailor their controls. The input mapping menu now lets you bind multiple actions to the same key. That might not sound flashy, but it opens up a lot of flexibility. Some players want to keep certain bindings similar to other games they play, or maybe they just find a dual-purpose key more comfortable. Now you've got that freedom, and it makes the PC version feel less restrictive compared to before. So that's the gist of the changes, but what's really interesting to me is how these kinds of fixes highlight the developers' priorities. They're not just patching game-breaking bugs, they're smoothing out the edges of the experience. Think about it. Collectibles falling through maps, broken achievements, shadow quality, remapping issues. These aren't flashy new content drops, but they're the kind of details that either quietly frustrate you or quietly make you smile when they work right. And that's what a patch like 1.005 is all about. It's cleaning up those little frustrations so the game feels tighter, smoother, and more rewarding across the board. Now, let's imagine you're just picking up Mafia The Old Country now, maybe because you heard about it on sale or you're a fan of the series, but hadn't tried this one yet. With this patch in place, your first playthrough is going to feel more polished than what early players went through. You're less likely to hit a brick wall because of a broken collectible or a glitched achievement. You're going to see smoother visuals in the later chapters, and the overall performance will feel better. In other words, this is the version of the game that feels ready for newcomers to jump in without worrying about lingering issues. For returning players, especially the ones chasing 100% or trying to clean up achievements, this patch might actually be the perfect excuse to come back. If you got stuck before because of the Fox statue bug or the True Soldado issue, now you can go back, finish what you started, and finally get the recognition for it. And let's be real, achievement hunters are a persistent group. When a game locks you out unfairly, it's infuriating, but when a patch finally fixes it, that relief and satisfaction is huge. It also says something about the developer's commitment to the game. Mafia The Old Country isn't the biggest blockbuster on the market right now, but 2K and Hangar 13 are clearly still supporting it with meaningful patches. They could have left some of these smaller issues untouched, but they didn't. That tells me they're invested in making this game feel polished for the long haul, whether you're playing on day one, or coming to it years later. And let's not forget how these kinds of patches set the stage for the community. When people see a game getting regular fixes and improvements, it builds trust. It makes players more likely to recommend it to friends, more likely to stick with it for longer, and more likely to check out future Mafia projects. It's all connected. So overall, Update 1.05 might not have flashy new missions or expansions, but it's quietly powerful. It fixes some major frustrations, it polishes the presentation, it smooths out performance, and it shows that the devs are still paying attention to their community.